I am joined by Roy from the Prog Report.
What's up,
Yeah.
man?
How you
How are
doing?
you?
Oh,
I love
look.
your intros. That's my favorite part of the show.
Thanks,
I'm
man. It's
so
all
happy
about
to get one of those intros.
yeah. It's all about the energy, and it's all about the real and organic excitement for having you on the program. I have been a fan of the Prog Report since about 1843, when it first
When
started
we
in
first started,
its
yeah.
first week. Yeah, I remember it well. Um, it's been going a while, but for those listening that don't know what the Prog Report is, can you tell us about it and how it all started?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Big fan of what you do. We've spoken before in the past, and it's I think what you do is great.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, the name sort of says it all. We are about progressive politics, obviously. No, but it started as man, honestly, like most things do. My love of this music, prog rock music, and the newer sort of bands that were coming around in 2013. It started as 2013, which is almost 10 years now. But I've always been a fan of, the Genesis, yes, Dream Theaters, all that kind of stuff. But then you had
Mm.
all these new bands coming around in the last 10 years, and I'm discovering all these bands, and I'm one of these people that would, either buy CDs to send to my friends, you got to hear this band, or send them an MP3, or I'm emailing
Yeah, yeah,
YouTube
yeah.
clips, and I'm just like doing that. And then, everybody's creating these blogs and things, and I said, why don't I just make one and I'll just review some records, and that way I can just hit send that to some of my friends and just sort of have a thing going.
That's cool.
That's it, man, honestly, and it became a thing.
And
So,
it's
I don't know
exploded,
why or
hasn't it?
how, but it did.
It's exploded for you guys because I know that it's not just yourself. That you've got a whole kind of host of other guys that
Yeah.
work with you. But for you personally, Roy, what was your background in music and or prog in getting into this? Is it just that you were a fan of the music and you just wanted to get online and say to people, "Hey, you need to like fucking listen to this"?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, even from I don't know, 4 years old, I was a music junkie throughout my whole life. That's it. I mean, I wanted to be in music for as long as I can remember. So I got into playing bands, and then I got into working at a radio station in my college years, and then I got to working for a record label in my early adult years, and just toiled around there doing all this kind of stuff, working with bands, doing some promotion, and yeah, it's just been music my whole life, with the occasional stint at attempting a real job, which never really stuck. But but um but yeah, and the music I like is always the center of it is prog. I mean, I think that there is a sort of left side of it that might be the metal,
Mhm.
Pantera maybe, or
Okay.
Metallica and those kind of bands. Maybe onto the right side of it is the Beatles,
Yeah,
and
yeah, 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 yeah.
bands like ELO and Supertramp,
Yes,
and sort of
yes.
that are sort of poppy but maybe proggy too a little bit. And then kind of in the middle is the Genesis, yes, Dream Theater, Haken, Porcupine Tree, Neil Morse Band, all that stuff. So that's where I sort of live, and have always liked this music. And right now, I think is outside of the early '70s when this was sort of the heyday. I think right now is the best time there is in Prague. Honestly, there's so much great music.
Seems to be making a comeback, doesn't it? I mean, certainly, you make mention of Haken. I think Haken are arguably probably the biggest modern progressive band on the planet at the moment, right?
Yeah,
You've
they're up
got
there for sure.
the godfathers of prog rock, like Yes and Genesis and Dream Theater, but Haken are just they're just doing it a bit differently. And it's difficult. It's a bit more kind of glitchy. It's a bit more experimental. Some of the riffs are much more heavy than what you sort of usually hear within the world of rock. But that's me, and this is about you. But what do you think, Roy? Having been involved in the industry for so long, having listened to so many bands that are emerging, what do you think are the most common misconceptions about progressive rock as opposed to other genres of music?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's always that image of capes and wizards and dragons, and that kind of stuff,
So true, so true.
which is like thing that happened for like one year in 1964. You know,
That's so true.
But yes, so there's that. I don't know if that's as much a thing, but I think that uh, I think it's a musical stigma that putting more into a song, playing more notes, putting more solos, putting more,
Yeah.
making things longer is somehow indulgent and less soulful and has less heart or something
Mm,
than three chord rock that is,
yes.
about being angry, or whatever. And so, but I think that's obviously ridiculous. You can like both. I do it in some cases like both, and there's
Yeah.
places for both. Um, so I think that would be the silliness. And I think a lot of people don't realize that if they were to listen to anything, but let's just use Haken, for example. I mean, you can't listen to Celestial Elixir, for example, and not just be completely blown away of the
Mm.
insanity and impressiveness of it. It may not be your thing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But don't tell me that's not like legit awesomeness. I can't believe that.
Do you think you've got to be a musician to really get it, to really get prog rock?
Maybe that helps for some of it, because the average person doesn't care time signature. They don't care if it's a diminished seventh scale, right? They could give a shit. Has nothing to do with them. So, but look, here's an example. I mean, Taylor Swift came out recently with a remix of an older song or something, and made a 10-minute version of it. I don't know if you know about
Right.
that. It happened like a couple months ago.
Right.
And she released some 10-minute version of some song. And there were articles like, she's insane. She's writing a 10-minute song. No one's ever done this. This is madness, you know? And it's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I got plenty more if you want to hear some.
That's just mainstream media, though, isn't it? Right? It's mainstream media
Yeah.
kind of just having fun with a popular artist, and I guess that's kind of what they do. You have interviewed some of the biggest names in progressive rock. You were, I think, the first and only person to interview Liquid Tension as a foursome ahead of the release of Liquid Tension 3 that obviously came
Yeah.
out
Hmm.
last year. But what do you think it is about an emerging artist that grabs your attention, taking into consideration your involvement with all these icons?
Hmm. Emerging. I think there's a certain just extra step that these musicians in this genre, especially because they all have home recording studios and they
Yeah.
all play numerous instruments and they have the education of listening to the bands that we grew up listening to. I mean, that's amazing, right? If you can learn how to play that stuff. So I think if you're one of these bands and you bring that and it's authentic, and you can tell they get it,
Mm.
um, then it grabs my attention. I've told this before to emerging bands or startup musicians that have asked me, should I do this? Should I do that? Or, that this kind of thing. And I said, my thing is like, just do whatever you're going to do. Pick your lane. If it's metal, if it's prog, if it's whatever, and go 110% all into that. Don't don't try to sort of be it, but also try and write a hit or try and expect radio play or whatever. That's not, it'll never work. If you want to, if you like prog, you want to write prog, go all in and be the most proggiest prog band that ever progged. And that audience, you'll find a home there and build something for real there. And then you can take it places.
Do you I mean, I totally, of course, I understand what you're saying, but with that, and I suppose I would, if this were a game of tennis, this would be a respectful counter. Artists in, for example, the classical world, like Ludovico Einaudi, huge Italian composer, he has been kind of ridiculed in a way by the classical community for his music being too catchy, too popular, used on anthems for banking and financing adverts and things like that. But what I think he's done is he has gone, I want to be classical, but I want to take some ingredients from the world of perhaps more popular classical music. And this is why he has been as successful as he is. Now, I don't know if you know him, but I'm kind of thinking it is great to pursue that one direction and that avenue of your emotional investment within what you want to do, whether it's prog or metal or pop or. But
Well, no, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't mean it like be a prog band that only
plays in
writes,
5/8.
yeah, that exclusively does that. I mean, you have to inject some of your personality into your music, right?
Yeah,
There's got to be something in there that is unique. Um, but what I mean is try and tap into an audience that will understand
yeah,
what
for
it is you're
sure.
doing. It's really hard to break a band in 2022. It's like
Yeah,
impossible, right? So if you already go into it, I mean, this is just my theory, but if you go into it jumping in with an audience that is hungry for the next thing of whatever
yeah,
that
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
you'll start some. It gives you a home base.
I definitely agree with that 100%. Um, Intertwining with what we're talking about emerging talent, and I think it's important to represent that scene across the world because the music industry at the moment, I think, I don't know, over where you are, but certainly in the UK, it really is just coming off its life support machine as a result of COVID and no live shows and no gigs and things like that.
Yeah.
You get on your website there's a tab for an unsigned artist to send their music to. Um, what what do you do once you receive that music if somebody is looking for you to listen to it?
We get, I mean, just so many. It's really,
I'm going to send you more. I'm going to clog
yeah,
up.
it's amazing. We get so many, and it's really nice that all these great musicians, feel like that they care what
For
we might
sure.
think or hear, and I appreciate that. We don't get to listen to all of them. I'll just be straight up honest. I mean, it's just hard to
Yeah.
listen to so many. What I tend to do is every once in a while I'll just sit for an hour and just go through as many as
Wow.
I can. Just 20, 30, 50, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we get, I don't know, a dozen or more a day.
Wow.
It's impossible. So um, and here and there when we find somebody that is, you sort of know it, honestly. You hear it all the time. Within the first 30 seconds, you're
It was
something just goes,
I was about to ask what's the with regards to listening to the music that's submitted to you, what's the biggest thing that you hear or the most common reoccurrence within what you hear and you think, why does this keep happening? Like bands need to stop doing this. What do you hear the most that you just cannot stand?
yeah, I don't know if it's anything particularly like that, but what I'll say is that I think sending in something that is really quality
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
production, and it, because with prog, look, it's okay if you write 15-minute songs. You don't, it's the one genre where that's fine. And if the first minute is just some orchestration thing that's building up to something, that might intrigue me or one of us to keep listening, right? So that's
Yeah.
okay. You don't need to get to the chorus within 30 seconds. It's not that type of genre. But but if it's quality enough,
Mm.
that's really, I think, the main key. I can't really put my finger on it. You just, when you know it, you know it.
Right.
And we're not the end all be all judges either. You know what I mean? Like there's places where I'm sure we may have missed somebody that sent in a demo. But on occasion we've discovered a couple and have sent them over to different labels that we think are worthy of their time, and some stuff has actually happened from that, which has been pretty cool.
You mentioned earlier, Roy, that the where we are at the moment is really kind of exploding for prog bands. And I would agree with you. I think the scene at the moment is absolutely exploding at the moment. What do you think the future holds for progressive music?
That's a tough one, right? Because the big guys are still I mean, you could even still say it's still Yes and
Yeah,
King Crimson, and look, Genesis just had a massive tour
of
that sort
course.
of was the end. Dream Theater are still huge. Porcupine
Yeah.
Tree Reunion, and these are all artists that are, they've been around a while and they're getting up there, and you don't know how much longer they're going to keep doing it. It could still be 20, 30 years, but who knows? I don't know.
Mm.
Um, so at some point there needs to be the new wave of bands and more of them, right? So is Haken going to pick up the mantle? Is it going to be Leprous or Riverside or, uh, you know, a
It's
number of other different bands that are out there? And there's a lot of them, but yeah, we need more of these bands to keep coming out and making quality music and
mm.
being able to tour and just continue to build audiences and build on what those other bands have built, because they're not going to be around forever. I mean, that's with any genre,
They
right?
are.
So,
They are. We've
yeah,
got to, we've got to like freeze them or something.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. So right now, a lot of them are still peaking. I mean, you have Dream Theater just won a Grammy, and they're
Right.
touring and they're doing well, and they could go on for a long time, it seems.
Yeah.
So, but who's going to be the next band? So I would hope that we continue to see more young bands come out there. That's what we're always looking for, is who's going to be the
Mm.
next, 5 or 10 new bands that come out every year, every other year, and do something cool.
And the great thing is now it's no longer a case of you think about 5 or 10 bands breaking a scene each year. It could be more than that because the user and the fan has the power to make whichever band they want big by theory, because we've all got we're all hooked up to Spotify and Apple, and if we love a band and we stream it loads and it's I do question, do majors have the power over bands that they maybe did 15 or 20 years ago? Bands certainly now seem to have a lot more freedom.
I really think it's a case by case. You have some artists that are just skilled at the do-it-yourself thing.
Mm,
They know how to do their own socials. They know how to market. They know how to make their own
yeah,
videos well, and they have all the tools, and they start to sell records. And in some cases, even if they want to sign with a label, maybe the finances just don't make any sense,
yeah,
right? I can make this without you and maybe
yeah,
10% more with you, so screw it. But I think that major labels still play a really big role.
mm,
The bigger bands are still with the major labels. They
yes,
still use their infrastructure and distribution and money for promotions. I mean, yeah, again, going back to Dream Theater or bands like Mastodon or Meshuggah or
mm,
a bunch of these bigger bands, they're all still on labels and still get that support. So I just think you need to get to a certain point, um,
yes.
where you decide if it makes sense for you or not. But there's certainly a way to do it yourself these days, for sure.
Um, I've got to ask you this, and I don't know if you're going to be allowed to answer it, just because because of
Okay.
your involvement within the world of prog. Um, who is, in your opinion, the best progressive band?
Yeah, that's impossible for me
Yeah,
to
that's
answer.
literally why I asked it.
That's impossible. Um,
Top three?
so I'll say, well, are we talking today or of all time?
I think of all time,
Okay.
but don't worry too much
So
about whether you've got to represent what was great in classical prog.
I, yeah, I'll say that I'm gonna go classical.
Okay,
For me, it would be Genesis. That's the band
great
that
shout.
is my favorite of the era.
Okay,
I love what Yes has done. I love
mm,
Pink Floyd.
yeah,
ELP has some amazing stuff. I mean, Rush, forget it. There's so many. My favorite of those, I would gladly say, is Genesis. I think their stuff holds up against anybody's, but it's a preference.
yeah, of course.
All bands are amazing.
I was
I
just
certainly have a
curious.
lot of my favorites from the modern era. I'll say Dream Theater's definitely up there. Porcupine Tree's up there.
Mm,
I'm a huge Steven Wilson fan. I think he does some amazing stuff, solo or with bands. Mike Portnoy is certainly a hero and someone I know well, and he's done everything he's done has been amazing. Neil Morris is, I think one of the
yeah,
best that's
yeah,
done it
yeah.
in the last 30 years. So I mean, there's just a bunch of them, man.
My Micah's. I said this we had Jordan on way back in episode 6. Mike Portnoy he's like the David Beckham of drums. And when I say that, I mean he is he kind of in some respects he's sort of becoming and has become one of the faces of prog.
Oh yeah,
I think
for
that
sure.
that's probably fair to say. And when I say the Dave Beckham of drums, I mean, a lot of people think about football, they think about icons like, David Beckham or whatever, but he has become quite iconic. Why do you think that is?
It's one, he was groundbreaking with what he was doing when he was first with Dream Theater, right? So
Of
that
course.
was for sure the starting point. But he wasn't just he was in control of a lot of what the band was doing and would put his face out there and handled their fan club and wrote to all the
Yeah.
fans and was very personable with everybody and put himself out there. Not a lot of drummers have that kind of charisma or personality. They're drummers.
Yeah.
And he is an immensely talented musician, and his personality just lends itself to that. And then when he split from Dream Theater, started becoming more vocal and joining this,
Hmm.
about every other band and starting a new band every month. And
He's probably joined another 6 bands while we've been doing this.
yeah, and then doing that Prog Nation at Sea cruise that he did in 2014, I think really
Yeah.
was sort of a big thing as well. Well, actually, go back to the Prog Nation cruise. Sorry, the tour that they were doing with Dream Theater, where they were bringing bands on
Hmm.
between the Buried in Me and Opeth and
Wow, great
um,
bands.
Scale the Summit and all these bands that they were exposing to audiences. I mean, they were really flying the flag for Prague and in the 2000s and early 2010s, and so I think he was a big part of that. People recognize that.
I agree. I agree. What is next for the Prog Report? You absolutely
World
and
domination.
but you love your prog, Roy, and do you know what? You just need to come over here, or I need to come over there, and we need to have some beers, and we need to get completely and absolutely shit faced, and just listen to a load of great music.
One day, isn't that the
It's,
dream?
it's, it's gonna be good.
Uh,
But what is next for this?
we just, look, I want to give a shout out to the guys that helped me, and if anybody's watched the Prog Report and you've actually been on with us, some of those guys, Jeff, and we're international, which is really cool. We have Jeff Bailey, who's in Ireland, and we have Dan Levy, who's in Brazil, and our good buddy who we call Prog Nick. He's earned that mantle, and he lives in Johannesburg in South
Nice.
Africa, and then we got a few more guys on the West Coast, and we're all over the place, which is amazing. And we've met all through this prog community. There's not
Nice.
guys that I knew before this, and honestly, for us, it's just a way to have fun, hang out,
Mm,
listen to great music, and it's become a community and a friendship for all of us, and
yeah,
that's what has been the best part of it.
that's
and
lovely.
and getting to know all these different bands and getting the respect from them. I think one of the biggest things for us was when we did in the beginning of COVID in 2020, we did this Prog from Home concert
Oh, okay.
online, and we reached out to everybody that we've almost ever interviewed, and emails to Portnoy and Neil Morrison, um, Steve Hackett and Jordan Rudess, and you name it. And practically every one of them's like, yes, we're in, we'll do it. And they
Wow.
sent videos performing these songs. And it was just so outstanding, the videos and performances that we got. And we put it all together into a 3-hour
Wow.
show
As
on a
one song.
Saturday. Well, no, it was just different clips with all the
Yeah.
performances. And it was to raise money for what was going on at the beginning of COVID, when
Mm.
everybody thought COVID was only going to be here for 2 months.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and but what we launched it on May 9th in 2020, and at one point we had over 6,000 people watching at one
Wow.
time,
That's so
and
good.
it's over 127,000 views right now to this point, and that was like amazing. So it was really
Amazing.
just a phenomenal thing, and the whole team was involved in putting that together. It was great. So it's that. It's the community. It's the people that write us when we ask questions. What song do you like? Or this, we get hundreds
Mm.
of answers every day on different things. I mean, that's the joy of it. Honestly, I love it because I love it and I love this music. But I started doing this just by myself for the first few years, and it just grew into this whole thing with all these people, and that's been
It's
the most
amazing.
amazing, just mind-blowing part of it. I think that's fun.
Well, listen. Take it from me. Thank you for doing what you do. I think that you guys work so hard to fly the flag for a genre of music that I think it's fair to say at times it doesn't get the spotlight that it needs and that it deserves and that it requires. We spoke about earlier about Taylor Swift having a 10-minute song that made press headlines, and bands have been doing that for like 40 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, prog bands anyway. But so from me, it's a big thank you and it's a big thumbs up for what you guys do. I really really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, man. I don't know if we deserve such high regards, but I'll take it. You know, it's just something to do for fun that people seem to enjoy, and that's great. We'll keep doing it for as long as we can find the time to keep doing it.
Roy, where can people find out more about you and the Prog Report?
Yeah,
Well, Roy's address is
progreport.com.
no.
Yeah, 19th Street. Yeah, ProgReport.com is the main hub for everything, but we do a lot more stuff on our socials, our
Yeah,
Facebook page. Just you can search up the Prog Report on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram. Um, different just interactions with guys that pay attention, and we started doing a live stream on Saturdays on our YouTube channel. I'm sorry. And we're also on there, and we have our
nice.
podcast, which is on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and all those places. And so it's just sort of in all the usual places. If you search Prog or Prog Report, you'll find us.
Amazing. And before I let you go, it would be wrong of me to not ask you for a song that you would like to close this program with. Who are you choosing and why, young man?
All right. So, well, we've talked about this band a lot. I know you love this band, so I'm going to go into the Haken world, and timeliness is good on this. So Charlie Griffith, who is one of their phenomenal guitar players, he's a genius guitar player, and he has a solo record coming out called Taltika. So I'm gonna butcher how to say it. But anyway,
That's
the song is called Arctic Cemetery, and it features vocals by Tommy Rogers from Between the Buried and Me, and it's a prog metal behemoth, and it's awesome. So that just came out. So why don't we check that out?